Hello and welcome to Six Figure Authors, the show that helps you take your writing career to the next level. I'm Lindsay Baroker and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Andrea Pearson.
And I'm Joe Lello.
And our guest this week is Ricardo Fayet, one of the co-founders of Reedsy, a site that provides author tools, a blog and podcast filled with advice on marketing, and a marketplace that lists vetted editors, cover designers, website designers, and other professionals that may be useful to you as an author. Ricardo attends a lot of publishing conferences, and he does most of the marketing for Reedsy as well as running ads for private author clients. So we're going to be asking him about marketing tips, how and why to get reviews, because Reedsy also has a Reedsy Discovery for getting reviews, and also about SEO and advertising. Hey, welcome to the show, Ricardo. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm really good. And yeah, that's a lot of topics to talk about.
We'll just keep you for 3 or 4 hours. It'll be okay. Did I miss anything? Do you want to tell us about yourself and Reedsy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we started, so we were 4 co-founders at Reedsy, and we started around 4 or 5 years ago. And I mean, the whole idea, as you put it, was to connect authors with a vetted network of really good editors, cover designers, marketers, website designers. We just added translators this week, so we have those in as well. Pretty much anyone that an author would need to hire at any point throughout their author career. That was and is the core idea of Reedsy.
And am I right that you're not an author yourself? How did you decide to get into the author side of things, or author business?
So I keep saying I'm going to write a book just to have a good answer to that. But no, I'm not an author yet. We got into this because my co-founder Emmanuel had heard about self-publishing. And we just started learning about it more from a reader perspective. And then we started thinking about what it meant for authors, the possibilities, and we had this idea for a marketplace, and we thought, hey, it's a cool idea. We should try it. And everyone we had a chat with at that point, Joanna Penn and a bunch of other early self-publishers told us that it was a good idea. So we tried it, and it's going okay.
That's really awesome. And I think a lot of authors have actually heard the name Reedsy, but I'm going to assume that not very many are totally familiar with everything Reedsy offers. Would you like to just give just a brief overview of that? And then you can also talk about how Reedsy has evolved over the years.
Yeah, sure. And that's totally the idea. I think everyone knows us for something different, and we're fine with that. So as I said, we started with this core idea of a marketplace, and we started with just editing and design services because every author is going to need that. We think every author, or the vast majority of authors, are going to need at least an editor and a good cover designer. Then we thought about additional services. We added publicity, which we're not 100% happy with because it only makes sense for very specific nonfiction topics. So we added book marketing with marketing experts. So more about ads, email marketing, price promotions, things like that. And then we had a translation, website design. And the issue for us from a marketing standpoint is that authors only came to us when they needed a particular service. And we wanted authors to be aware of Reedsy at earlier points in their career. So we started a blog with writing advice that we sourced mostly from our professional editors in the beginning, and then we added more writers. We started creating learning courses. So these are free 10-day courses about pretty much any topic. We've got a ton of courses on craft, on editing, and a lot of courses on marketing. So I've written a course on Facebook ads because I run those for Reedsy and for private authors. On Amazon ads, we've got a course from David Gogren on BookBub ads. Course on creating a newsletter as well. So we try to provide basically as much free content as possible to draw authors in and show them the value of Reedsy, and then let them know, hey, if at any point you need to hire anyone, then think about our marketplace. Same tactic that authors use with reader magnets, I think, providing free content to readers, showing their value, and then if readers want to pay to get their full price books, then they do that.
All right. And it sounds like, I mean, it seems like the services you're providing are obviously useful for authors of all levels, but it seems like particularly if this might appeal more to an established author who's more aware of all of the things that he needs. Like, do authors of all levels get value out of Reedsy, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we actually probably the majority of authors on Reedsy are going for editing and design services. So these are authors who are earlier in their career, obviously, because they don't have their editor, they don't have their cover designer. And then the other types of services, or for authors who are more aware, who are more advanced in their career. We try, it's really hard, but we try to provide content and value to authors at all stages. And that makes it really hard, even for us, to keep track of everything we do. So I do a Thursday weekly newsletter with, I try more advanced tips around marketing, but most of our other newsletters are going to be about more basic stuff. So we try to provide content at all stages, and we try to segment our list so that we don't send advanced marketing topics to authors who are just starting out.
Now, one of the things about especially editing and like cover design services is there can be a tremendously wide range of costs. Like, are those represented there as well? Like you mentioned that you do vetted, so I would imagine that knocks out some of the really low end stuff, but is there still affordable for the full range of author as well?
I definitely say it's going to be top of the market stuff. So when we say vetted for editing, we almost only look at editors with past traditional publishing experience. If we go for editors who work only with indie authors, we try to make sure that they've worked with big names in the industry, in their genre, and we go for genre specialized editors as well. The more specialized, the better. Their prices are definitely going to be on the higher end of the market. We actually got a blog post with average prices that we see on our marketplace that received a lot of equal praise and criticism because, yeah, it showed that our prices are on the higher end of the market. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's a place where you come to make a bargain. You can find some bargains on Reedsy, but they're rare. And on the other hand, it's definitely a marketplace that makes it a lot easier for high-end professionals to be on, because they know they're not going to be competing against someone who's just like cutting their prices because they're starting out.
So we wanted to ask you a few questions about reviews, since that is one of the services you guys have too. And we actually haven't talked about it too much yet on the show. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of reviews in selling books and maybe getting advertising opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of hate the importance of reviews, but they are pretty important. Whenever I work on ads for an author, the first thing I do is I go through their reviews, both editorial and customer, and trying to find cool sounding reviews and short blurbs there that I can use as headline or like text in the ads. So that's a very simple example of where reviews become really useful. And I found that these tend to be the best converting text on ads. And yeah, we started a service called Reedsy Discovery. It's a new service. We have really high ambitions and hope for it. But right now, the idea is you submit a book and you pay $50 for that. It's a book that should be just launched or on pre-order. And what we do is we make it available to a pool of certified reviewers. So again, that's people we've curated, who generally have a blog on the side, who do not professional but semi-professional reviews. And the book can get picked up by one reviewer only for now. So if a reviewer picks it up, they have to leave a review before the book launches. And we basically launch the book on our platform and make it available to readers along with its review on the day of the launch. And readers on our platform can upvote the books that launch every day. So we have lower competition. Authors can invite their readership to leave upvotes, and generally the most upvoted books with the best reviews make it into our weekly newsletter that goes to tens of thousands of readers right now. So we're not BookBub. We don't have millions to spend on Facebook ads to build like lists with millions of readers in every genre. We're also not going for the price promotion angle. So we don't have huge lists, but we're trying to add the human curation element of like semi-professional reviewers to try to cultivate a different kind of readership. So it's going slowly, but it's definitely going well for now. So I'd encourage authors to to at least give it a try. I'll say that there's a big risk element because you pay $50 regardless of whether you get a review or not, and regardless of whether the review is positive or not. And we actually encourage our reviewers to not do only 5-star reviews, to balance them. So there's a risk element, which makes it very different from any other platform out there. So I'd like to point that out.
All right, I actually submitted a book, but just a couple of days ago. I think there's about a 5-week, it'll be, it takes a few weeks for the reviewers to get it and stuff. So I'll let people know if I get 1 star, obviously, thumbs down for Reedsy Discovery. But do you have any ideas too on what you see authors doing that's effective also for getting reviews like on Amazon and Goodreads and some of the sites where people are out buying books, hopefully?
Yeah, I think the way I see it, there are 2 kinds of reviews. There are the organic reviews that come with sales. And so the only way to get those is to get sales and to have something at the end of the book asking the reader for a review, or a reader magnet signing people onto your newsletter so that you can then send them an email to ask for a review. And then there are the reviews that you need at launch. So generally, when I work with clients, I tell them that they should try to get at least around 20 reviews before they launch a book. And those are generally achieved through a street team. So building a team of either beta readers or advanced review readers to whom you send your book ahead of time. And the strategy that I like to use is launching the paperback on Amazon around a week earlier than the ebook, so that the readers can already post the reviews on there. And when the ebook launches, you already have like 20-30 reviews from those people. They're not going to be verified purchase reviews, but since you won't have any verified purchase reviews on Amazon, they'll show up first anyway, and then you'll start getting the organic verified purchase reviews afterwards. So that's kind of the strategy that I like to use, and that works pretty well for the clients I've had so far.
So kind of going off of that, oops, I just muted my mic. Unmuted now. Is it better to get reviews from people who are already familiar with your books? Or, I mean, would you say it's fine? I mean, obviously you would say it's fine to go with people who are not currently familiar, but which tend to be easier to get and which would be better for an author?
So I work mostly with authors who are starting a new brand or starting a new genre, so they didn't really have a readership there. I'd say that you're always going to get reviews from your fans. They're going to do it organically, so you should strive to get reviews from people who don't necessarily post them. What you should make sure is, if you're in the earlier stages, not to ask too many friends, family for reviews, because it kind of shows that those reviews have been written by someone who doesn't necessarily read in that genre. I think the most powerful reviews, the ones that you can really use in blurbs and advertising, and reviews that kind of use the keywords and the strong phrases that are expected in your genre, that know a little bit about how books are constructed. So yeah, reviews from people who are more used to writing a review, I'd say. And genre is definitely vital.
See, that's a really good point. I actually wasn't even thinking along that line. I mean, I've in my experience, I found it's generally easier to get reviews from a current street team. But when you're first starting out, I mean, like you said, people who don't normally write reviews don't always know what to write, and people reading those reviews, they can tell, What about places like Kirkus? Are those, I mean, what's your philosophy on going to places like that to get reviews?
I think Kirkus is very expensive. I think most of those places are really expensive to get a review, so I don't think it's 100% worth it. The only cases in which I see them kind of work is if you're going to go for a massive advertising campaign and you really want a super professional review that you can use in your ads again. But I think you're better off getting that from a blogger in your genre who is, on top of giving you a good review, they're going to advertise that review or promote that review to their audience, so you're getting a little bit more. So yeah, instead of spending $500 on Kirkus, you can spend maybe 2-3 hours contacting 10-20 bloggers. But I think in general, customer reviews are going to be more powerful than editorial reviews, and you only can get those to a street team. So that's why we kept the price tag on Reedsy Discovery pretty low, because right now the real big thing is getting a review. Not everyone gets it. And as I said, reviews are not worth, one editorial review is not worth $500 in my opinion. So we kept it to 250.
All right. Now, I was going to ask if editorial versus customer reviews is more important, but you just established that customer reviews are more important. So let's say that you're focusing on customer reviews. Does the storefront matter? Like, should you just be shooting for, I don't care where you bought my book, review it where you bought it, or should you are you going to be pursuing reviews in certain places?
I'd pursue reviews on Amazon mostly. I've worked with a lot of KU authors, so obviously that's the only place where they're going to look for reviews. I think if you're really going for a wide strategy, then you're going to need reviews in different places. So you can try to. It's hard, but you can try to segment your list based on where the readers purchase. Maybe try a survey in your list or something like that, or segmented based on what links they click in your newsletter. You have all of the links to the different stores. And if you have a reader who always clicks on the Kobo link, you tag them as a Kobo author, and then maybe you send a Kobo reader, and then you send a newsletter to Kobo readers asking for reviews if you're liking them on that particular store. I've seen example of authors doing giveaways on like gift cards on different stores to encourage people to leave a review. Obviously, that's against most stores' terms of service. But if done via email, the store's not going to find out. So it's up to you to see whether you want to be in the gray zone, black zone. Yeah, that's just, I'll mention it as a strategy without endorsing it. And yeah, that's mostly it. For me personally, I don't care if I don't need an editorial review as long as the customer reviews are solid. As I mentioned, if they're from people who know how to write a review, then it's very easy to take like short excerpts from those reviews and use them in ads. If we're lacking those, if all the reviews on the stores are a great book, love that reads, read it in one night, then investing in an editorial review might be worth it just to have that snippetable excerpt that you can use in ads.
You can always do the thing where even if the review wasn't entirely flattering, you just snip out a little bit where it sounds good there. Yeah, I've definitely found that just asking for reviews at the end of the book, and it seems like it doubles how many you actually get, because not everybody really thinks of it, but if you say like, hey, it would really help me out as a newer author or as I'm launching a new series, to go leave a review. I mean, a lot of people never ask and they're like, why don't I have any reviews? So we wanted to ask too about, I think you've mentioned before, I've heard you say that in building ReadZ and really increasing the traffic to that site, you've used search engine optimization to make sure if you have something people are looking for, they can find it. Can you talk about that a little bit? Is it something we should be paying attention to as authors?
Yeah, definitely. I think I did my last Ning presentation on search engine optimization. So I do think it's something authors should pay attention to. I also do think it's a lot more relevant to nonfiction authors and fiction authors, obviously. But yeah, the little story on Reedsy is that we had a blog since the very beginning because we were told that, yeah, every company in publishing should have a blog. So we started it. Not a lot of people were reading it. I think we had 150 or 200 weekly hits, something like that, which is nice. But we kept investing a lot of resources on the blog, and not a lot of people were reading it. So we came across this SEO strategy on a blog, on a blog post I read, that was about creating a very long post about a very specific topic, using data, using an infographic, basically creating a very, very long and strong piece of content that answers a very precise question. And that was how much it costs to self-publish a book, because we actually had data on the cost of editing, the cost of design. Obviously, that data wasn't upmarket stuff, but it was still relevant data that almost no one else has out there. So we put that out there. We optimized it for how much does it cost to self-publish a book. We reached out to a bunch of partners. We got a guest post, I think, in Media Bistro, Publishing Perspectives, etc. All places that we don't necessarily care about in terms of traffic, but are great for SEO. And that post ranked very quickly #1 for how much does it cost to self-publish a book, and cost of self-publishing, and cost of publishing, and things like that. So that showed us kind of the way, and we replicated that strategy. And now I think the #1 way in which authors come across us at any stage of the publishing process is through Googling something that has nothing to do about editing or design or the services we offer. So yeah, if you Google BookBub for authors, I think you'll find Reedsy up there, for example. If you Google how to write a novel, if you Google world building, will be up there. So that's kind of the strategy we followed. It's replicable for anyone writing about a specific nonfiction topic. If you write about yoga, there's a huge niche that you can write about. And generally the steps are, one, doing keyword research. So spending a week looking at all the keywords that have volume in your niche, who is ranking for them, and what kind of content they use to rank for them. Step 2, deciding on a keyword should be a smaller one, so that you're not competing with the big guns, and writing a post about it, doing outreach so that you get people who link back to your post, and then generally, if that works well, then start building from there.
It does seem with nonfiction, it's a very clear path. People are going to be looking up yoga mats, best yoga mats, yoga mat reviews, whereas here I am over here trying to promote my urban fantasy. Is there, like, I usually, if I put up a short story on my blog, I'm like, title, an urban fantasy short story, and I put it in the URL and somewhere in the post. Do you think that there's any worth for like fiction authors to worry about it all if they are putting some content on their websites?
Yeah, there is, but you need to band together in order to get something to rank. I think, to use your example, if you're trying to rank for urban fantasy short stories, it's going to be really hard to do that on your own. I mean, you could have all your short stories in one page and title that page urban fantasy short stories, but since they're all going to be by you, Google's going to recognize that. And they recognize that while your short stories are really, really great, there are probably other authors out there who have great short stories. And so they're not going to place you in the first results. They're going to favor a blog post by Reedsy Discovery, for example, because we use that tactic on there as well to draw readers in. A blog post on the best urban fantasy short stories, in which we'll list maybe 20 or 30 really good short stories from a variety of urban fantasy authors. So I'd say, if you wanna use that tactic, and if you want to fight against BookBub, Reedsy Discovery, Book Riot, Goodreads, etc., then you definitely need kind of an author collective in a specific genre and go after all those genre keywords. It's definitely doable. I'm not 100% sure it's worth the effort, but if you manage to get those rankings, SEO is low to build up, but then it's also low to disappear. So you can reap the results of the efforts for several years afterwards.
Now, if you got into web design fairly early on, then you would interpret SEO in some ways as like stuff that you put into the headers and metadata of your page. And it sounds like a lot of what SEO is now is a lot more complex than that. So like, how much of this is sculpting the content of your page and the thing that's coming, the traffic that's coming toward it, versus literally just settings that you're marking down and making sure those things are right?
Yeah, SEO is becoming incredibly complicated because there are thousands of ranking factors on Google. So I can tell you need to be doing those three things in order to get something ranked for a keyword, because there are thousands of ranking factors. I think the times of like blasting a page with meta keywords in order to get ranked for those keywords is definitely over. Google doesn't even look at meta keywords anymore. Now it's more, Google is smarter and is developing machine learning capabilities to basically think more like a human. They try to identify when people search for a term in particular. For example, if they search for urban fantasy, Google's going to try to guess based on what people do afterwards, what they click on, how much time they spend on the page, etc. They're going to try to identify the search intent. And the search intent is basically, if I search for urban fantasy, what am I looking for? Am I looking for a definition of urban fantasy? Am I looking for the best urban fantasy books? Am I looking for free urban fantasy books? Am I looking for short stories? And probably if you Google that, you're going to get a mix, I'm guessing, of urban fantasy definitions and lists of urban fantasy books. Because Google has seen that the search intent is very divided. Maybe half the people who are searching it are looking for a definition, and the other half are looking for a list of books. So yeah, there's machine learning. It's also important. So it's important to match a search intent. It's important to have a page that loads very quickly. It's important to have a page that's optimized for mobile. So the cheap tactics, web design tactics that worked before don't work anymore, but web design is still as important as ever, more in terms of user experience. Page that loads fast, page that's optimized for mobile, page that keeps people on it. The longer people stay on your page, the more Google is going to think that this was a relevant result to show to the searchers. And yeah, that's mostly it.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. I used to have to pay attention to that stuff for work, but I stopped like 10 years ago and I switched to the author side, and it's more fun just writing stories. So we were talking about SEO as far as Google goes, since that's a big search engine, but of course Amazon has its own internal search engine. Is there anything we can be doing on our book pages that may help if people search for urban fantasy on Amazon, for example?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think, yeah, Dave Chesson did a presentation at Ning about that, and he's putting out a lot of really good content at Kindlepreneur about that. I like to say that the Amazon algorithms are pretty much where Google's were 5-10 years ago. So you still have meta keywords that are very important for ranking on Amazon. You have categories. The book descriptions are indexed, so if you put keywords in there, Amazon is going to use those as well to a certain extent. So it's compared to Google, it's a very, very basic algorithm, and because of that, it gets gamed a lot, sadly. Also because it's influenced. The thing about the Amazon algorithms, there are several of them, is that they're influenced mostly by one metric, and that's sales. The same way Google's algorithms 10 years ago were influenced mostly by one metric, which was backlinks, so links from other websites to your piece of content. Amazon's algorithms depend on sales mostly. So the best thing you can do is get sales. And the other things, obviously, keywords, a little tip around keywords is you have those seven keyword boxes. You can actually write phrases in them. And all the keywords in your phrase are going to be indexed individually and as a group as well. So if instead of putting urban fantasy, you can put like, I don't know if it's gonna be too long or not, but female protagonist, dragon urban fantasy. And just with that box, that's going to get your book indexed for dragon urban fantasy, female protagonist, dragon urban fantasy, etc. All the combinations in there, so that you save up on space and you can get indexed for more keywords. I'll say though that exact matches are still rewarded by Amazon. So with an equal number of sales, someone who has dragon fantasy as an exact keyword, so as one of the 7, is going to get better rank for dragon fantasy than someone who has dragon fantasy as part of a longer phrase keyword like urban fantasy, dragon female protagonist, for example. So that's a little thing about keywords. But again, I think it's more relevant for nonfiction than fiction, because there are going to be more searches on the nonfiction end. For example, again, yoga books, there's going to be more searches for that probably, or other niche nonfiction topics than big fiction, where users browse more by category or bestseller lists or things like that.
Yeah, good point on that. Okay, so just continuing talking about Amazon, they're pretty picky about what authors put in their descriptions. Do you have any tips for navigating that, and what are some do's and don'ts?
The book description, I think for me, the number one goal of a book description is to sell the book. So it's got to hook the reader, and I wouldn't think too much about search engine optimization on Amazon, about hitting keywords. I would just think about writing the best catchy description to sell the book. You're automatically gonna put in relevant keywords to your genre in there if you do that. And if you've got your genre pretty much nailed down. So that's automatically going to happen, and you shouldn't really put any effort specifically into that. Otherwise, you run the risk of over-optimizing for a keyword, and that's not good.
Now, if you write in a very niche genre, sometimes it can be tempting to cast a very wide net with your keywords and SEO, with things that might not directly be appropriate to your product. How careful should we be with that? And is there a danger in, say, somewhat misleading somebody with what leads to your book?
Yeah, I think that the danger is whenever you're miscategorizing a book, the big danger is polluting the also boat. So something David Garwin's been talking about quite a bit. But I mean, in order for that to happen, I wouldn't think it would happen so much with keywords, because even if your keyword is slightly off your book and people search, for example, let's say you put dragon fantasy when there aren't any dragons in your book. If people search for that and you've sold really well, so your book comes first in the results, if they click through to the book, there's no dragon on the covers, there's no mention of dragons in the book description, and there's no dragon in the lookalike, they're probably not going to buy the book. So it's not going to be a big deal, I think, on keywords. It's obviously a much bigger deal in categories. If you put your book intentionally in categories where it doesn't fit, there you risk also book pollution and reader disappointment a lot more than by keywords. So I'd be really, really careful about categories, also about cross promotion with other authors, because that's the number one way of polluting your also boats. If you're cross promoting with an author who's not in your genre, I wouldn't be that careful about keywords, within reason, obviously.
Yeah, I've definitely seen where a book's in a certain category, and then you look at one of the top critical reviews, like, this is not magic realism. That's all, so readers notice, but not with the keywords, because that's pretty much invisible to them.
Exactly. That's the main thing about keywords. No one sees them aside from the author.
So you're kind of a Facebook ads guy too. I found like a nice hour, I'm going to call it a lecture, or webinar maybe, that you did with Alliance of Independent Authors, I think last May. So I'll go ahead and link to that in the show notes, because there's a really good overview of everything. But we wanted to ask you a couple of questions today. Here in 2020, what are you finding works well with Facebook ads right now?
So first, they work as well as they used to. In my experience, I've been running them for Reedsy for 4 years now, 3-4 years, and they've only improved for us, probably because we've gotten better at them. So I don't think there's a lot of people are saying they don't work as well as they used to, and I don't think that's true. What I'm finding works particularly well nowadays are dynamic ads. We're getting to a point where letting Facebook decide where to show your ads and how to show them is really paying off. They're taking that one step further with campaign budget optimization, which I'm not a big fan of, but they're going to implement that for everyone, I think, in late February or early March. So we're definitely moving towards a form of advertising where you give Facebook a bunch of options and a bunch of directions, and then they do the job of automating everything for you. So it's a lot easier for the user, but for control freaks, it's a lot harder, because you give all the control to Facebook. I'll say though that so I've been running Google Ads as well for Reedsy, and again, that's a place where Google has been really strong as well. And I think Facebook was maybe 1 or 2 years late in comparison to Google in advertising. For several years now, I could give Google a search term. I give Google a search term, how much I'm ready to pay for a conversion for that search term, and then they'll do everything on their own. So yeah, whereas 2 years ago, if you let Facebook decide, if you used automatic placements on Facebook, it was a nightmare. They'd show your Facebook on the right hand side of desktop. It really didn't work. So yeah, I'll say in the future, let Facebook decide more and more, and usually it's gonna yield you better cost per click and conversion.
Well, that's good. I need to check them out because I think I've noticed along with others that when you're trying to make your audiences kind of based on like other authors in your genre, it seems there's fewer than ever people that you can actually target.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or just tips for finding audiences for those that are doing it themselves?
Yeah, it's I think after the Cambridge Analytica thing, they had to remove a lot of people and companies and interests as targetable interests. So we've definitely lost authors in there that we could target. I think there are two powerful things when I look for new author or interest targets. The first one is to go through the Amazon top 50 in your genre, top 50 authors, and you try them as interest, and you're going to be surprised. There are a few authors that you'll probably have never heard of that show as an interest. God knows why, but it's great. They're showing as an interest, so you can try them out. Another thing is to use Facebook Audience Insights. You plug in an audience that's worked really well for you, and Facebook will show you what other pages those people like. So basically the correlation between page likes, and you can usually find a couple other targetable interests through there. But I think the future is moving towards custom audiences and lookalikes. One thing that I love doing with all clients is if they have a reader magnet on BookFunnel. A lot of authors don't know that, but you can add your Facebook pixel on there in the advanced settings of the BookFunnel page. So you can basically build an audience, retarget that audience, and build a lookalike out of that audience for all the people who visit your BookFunnel page, whether that's from ads or people clicking at the end of your books, your reader magnet page, or on your website or whatever. Definitely have the reader magnet, the pixel on your web page as well. And you can start getting into lookalike audiences, which in my experience work always better. What I do is generally the best audiences for me are lookalike of, for example, lookalike of BookFunnel traffic, and narrowed down by Kindle Store, Amazon Kindle keywords as interests if I'm targeting Amazon readers, obviously.
For people who have maybe been running Facebook ads for quite a while and feel like maybe they've exhausted some of their favorite author targets or their own lookalike stuff, I noticed in that webinar you mentioned like blue ocean marketing as a way to maybe find some audiences that would be receptive but aren't as obvious and maybe not as targeted as much. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean the concept of blue ocean marketing is going to fish in a sea that's blue where there are a lot less people fishing, so less competition. So several ways to do that. First, you can think of interests that other people haven't thought about. So that's the idea of going through your Amazon top 100 and going through Facebook Audience Insights to find new ideas. Another great way is to build your own audiences. So that's custom and lookalikes. I think that's the most powerful thing. And the last thing is kind of tangential audiences. So for sci-fi books, for example, you got all the sci-fi movies, Star Trek, even sci-fi video games. I found those audiences to work really well, especially when you're giving Facebook something to optimize for. So the problem with books is that often you're sending readers to a book page. And so the only thing Facebook can optimize for is a click to that book page. And that's not enough for Facebook to identify whether the ad is working for that type of person or not, because like it's very easy to click on an ad. When I run ads to a reader magnet on BookFunnel, Facebook actually, I optimize those for conversion. So for people who actually sign up to download the reader magnet. And so there you've got a longer funnel. You've got people have to click on the ad, land on BookFunnel, stay on BookFunnel, and sign up. And that way, if you use maybe bigger audiences that are not 100% relevant to your reader magnet, Facebook's going to auto-optimize based on the type of people that they see converting. And so you can afford to have much bigger, slightly less relevant audiences, where Facebook's just going to guess and progressively show the ad to the most relevant people. So that's how you can get away with less relevant audiences that, because they're less relevant, other authors are not going to be using.
I like that. I actually never heard of the blue ocean marketing term before. So I also listened to your video and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, so is there ever a case where hiring someone to do book marketing for you would be a good idea?
Yeah, I think so. That's one of the big questions we get since we listed book marketers on Reedsy. And yeah, there are several cases where I think it makes sense. Most of the collaborations we get that are really helpful is for someone who's starting out or who's starting out in a new genre and they want a proper marketing plan. So they want someone to organize their whole, for example, rapid release and to have a launch schedule with which price promotions am I going to book, when am I going to discount my book, when am I going to start the ads, and someone who kind of prepares everything. So these kind of marketing plans are really, really useful. Then you can co-execute them with the marketer. Then for authors who have books that are not selling, whether it's some of your backlist or all of your books, and you've tried everything, or you feel like you've tried everything and you don't know what's not working, can be really helpful to just ask a professional to take a look at it. So we get a lot of collaborations on simple consultations where the marketer is just going to do a review of your online profile, of all your book pages, your optimization, your SEO, all that, and make recommendations. More often than not, those recommendations are going to be simple. It's going to be like change your cover, change your book description, but also they're going to give tips on like how to get added to more categories, how to change your Kindle keywords. And generally leave you with one or two things to test next as a marketing channel, whether that's Facebook ads or Amazon ads or BookBub ads. So those consultations can be really, really great to break a marketer's block, let's say, to make the equivalent of a writer's block. And lastly, we have a few specialists on Reedsy. Again, we have a lot of specialists on blurb writing. Most authors hate writing their blurbs, their book descriptions, so you can hire a specialist to do it for you, and those generally tend to work really well. We've got a few authors who specialize in setting up mailing lists, a few marketers who specialize in setting up mailing lists, so we've got that as well. And I think that can make sense if you don't want to buy and read through Newsletter Ninja by Tamila Bragg. You can just hire someone to do the whole thing for you and leave you with your newsletter all done, with your mailing list all done, with the automation, the reader magnet, and all that. And finally, there are a few people like myself who are more often than not busy and not showing at all on Reedsy, but sometimes showing, who run ads for authors. So I never run ads. My goal is not to run ads for someone forever, unless they're a 6 or 7 figure author and can afford it. My goal is more to work with an author on a 1 or 2 month period, set up the ads, show them how I set them up, show them how to optimize them, and show them how to take over. So that's the equivalent of, like, instead of buying Mark Dawson's course, for example, you work with someone hand in hand who's just going to teach you more or less the same strategies, but applied directly to your books, and so that you can take over afterwards. So those are kind of the few cases in which I think it makes sense to hire a book marketer, but definitely don't expect to go in there hiring someone who's just going to do the marketing for you, because that doesn't exist. That'd be too expensive.
Yeah, that's what I usually tell my clients. They're like, "Can you just do the ads for me?" No, I can't. And I like the way you laid that out, all the different services that Reedsy offers, especially the, just setting things up and then showing people how to do it. I mean, how much do each of these kinds of services cost generally?
So a full marketing plan is generally in the $2,000 to $3,000. So that's probably one of the more expensive services. But again, that's for authors who've never done a marketing plan before, authors who are starting out, or authors, as I said, who are starting out in a new genre and need that. For ad management, I charge around $750 per platform per month. So that's for Amazon ads, Facebook ads, and BookBub ads. And as I said, the idea is not to run them forever. I do it for some authors, but most of the time I try to just set it up so that authors can run them on their own afterwards. And the other things, consultations, they vary a lot. Some of our marketers charge a lot for consultations. Most of them are going to charge something like $250 to $300 an hour, and generally send a report of like next steps after the consultation. So yeah, I mean, I'm talking mostly fiction here because that's where I have most of my experience. I know some of our nonfiction marketers who are really great charge a lot more, in the several thousands, because here the game is more getting speaking gigs, getting presence at events, conferences, direct sales, and all that. So it's a whole different game, or selling a course on the back end of your book, or selling services through your book. So it's different ROI, so you can afford to spend more. It's a different marketing as well.
Yeah, good point about that. Most of our listeners are going to be fiction listeners, but I mean, we do have some nonfiction listeners, and I mean, yeah, nonfiction hands down is generally easier because you do have that bigger spending pool because you do make more money on non-book stuff. So my next question is, I mean, so not just with Reedsy, but with other services, anybody basically. So if any of our listeners decided to hire somebody to help them get things going, how do they know if that person is doing a good job? What's the best way to follow up? What's the best way to check what they're doing, and make sure that it's beneficial before, approaching them and saying, hey, I don't like what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think first you got to go into this with a lot of trust. So you got to make sure that you're ready to trust that person for at least a couple of months, and not start questioning every decision. Then you also have to go into it with knowledge. I think it's great to hire someone to run your Facebook ads if you know nothing about Facebook ads, but it's going to be a lot more beneficial if you're already familiar with how the platform works and some of the best practices. Like I always said, before you hire someone to run your Facebook ads, take the free course we have on Reedsy about Facebook ads, because one, it's free, and two, it's going to teach you the basics. You don't need to do a bigger course or spend like tens of hours learning about Facebook ads, but you got to know the basics of how the platform works, and how authors out there use it, so that you can at least understand what your marketer is doing. And then it's a question of being prepared for it not to work out. At the end of the day, what you're looking for is for the book to increase its sales. And no marketer, no publicist, no one can guarantee that. We can come close to it, but we can never really guarantee it. And if you see that you're spending a lot of money on ads, or you're spending a lot of money on that person, just be prepared to stop the collaboration. At the moment you lose the trust, basically, and that's reciprocal, be prepared to say, hey, it's been great working with you. I owe you $500 for that first month. I learned a ton of things, but I don't think this is a strategy worth pursuing for me. So I'm not going to go for the second month. And that's the best way, I think, in my opinion, to go about it. Because again, there's never a guarantee. So trust, knowledge, and be prepared to very pragmatically, very nicely, very professionally stop things if you feel they're not working out.
All right. Now let's suppose for a minute that you're running your own marketing campaign. Tends to be a tendency for people to want to micromanage it, especially early on. Sometimes it's called for. Like just literally this morning, I discovered that I had an overly broad keyword on an Amazon ad that ate the entire daily budget in 3 clicks. So obviously I had mismanaged the bid and selection on that one. But when things are starting off slow, micromanaging might be a bad idea. So like, how do you know when it's time to make an adjustment to a marketing campaign?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think you got to watch everything you do regularly, and you gotta. I mean, you gotta have a feeling of when you're micromanaging or not. I certainly wouldn't recommend watching Amazon ads every day. My experience with Amazon ads is that they're very frustrating because it takes time to gather data. So I watch them once a week. You can watch them twice or thrice a week, but every day is definitely too much because you'll make decisions based on very, very little data that's not significant enough to make a decision on. So know how each of your marketing channels kind of works and when you need to reassess it. For example, if you've got a mailing list automation, you don't need to change that automation every week. It's something that's kind of that you can leave there for several months, unless obviously you have a change in, for example, your backlist. If in your automation you mentioned the different books in the series and you add another book in that series, then you need to edit that automation to add that book in. So it helps to kind of have a list of all the marketing efforts you've got going on. And for each marketing effort, have something about when do I need to watch it and when do I need to update it. So kind of kind of a schedule if you work like that for every channel you've got going on.
Okay, now obviously up until now we've mostly been talking about doing ads for direct sales, but people also advertise sometimes to get add people to their newsletter or to gain followers on various platforms. Like, what are your thoughts on advertising for that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I love that. I mentioned the conversion ads straight to book funnel before. Those work really great. I think one of my latest clients, we're getting signups to his newsletter for 30 cents, 30 cents a signup. So that's pretty great. And we built him a 2,000 reader mailing list before launching his first book for pretty cheap. So I love those, especially for people starting out, or again, starting out in a new series, in a new universe, in a new genre, where you have to build an audience from scratch before you release your book. Those are extremely powerful. Then an experiment I'm running right now with an author who has published 3 books a while ago in a series, and they're kind of they're not selling that much anymore. So we've got a low level plateau of sales to work from, is setting up a reader magnet and getting him subscribers to his mailing list through Facebook conversion ads to BookFunnel. And what we're going to look at is not only the cost of acquiring those subscribers, but then those subscribers, when they get the automation about the paid books, because there's this low plateau of sales, we're going to see instantly whether that makes a difference in sales or not. So that's going to be an interesting experiment to see whether advertising for newsletter subscribers rather than direct sales actually has a direct impact on direct sales or not.
Yeah, we've definitely talked to authors who have built like humongous lists by doing that, advertising to their free novella, prequel, or whatever. With your guy, is he asking for an email in exchange before they can download, or do they get to download it for free and then he's got like a sign up for my list and get something else at the end of the ebook?
No, generally it's you got to sign up to get the reader magnet. So BookFunnel has this very nice GDPR compliant thing where it's written very clearly that you're signing up to an author's newsletter in order to get the book, and that works from a legal standpoint. And yeah, as I said, if you're spending even 50 cents to gain 1 subscriber, you can afford to spend like whatever you can afford to build a really big mailing list. Then it's a question of how you engage with that mailing list, because obviously a Facebook lead's not going to be as great as someone who's read your book and grabbed your reader magnet from the back matter of the book. So you probably need to segment those Facebook leads and warm them up with an automation funnel that works really well. Yeah, you got to see whether it's worth it to you to have a really big mailing list that's not super engaged, or whether it's more worth it to advertise for direct sales directly.
Yeah, we've had people on who have done 2 mailing lists, you know, sort of the back of the book mailing
Right.
list that's the real engaged, proven buyers, and then another one that they treat a little differently and kind of lead into maybe you want to buy buy my book.
Yeah, definitely recommend that. I mean, it's super easy to do within MailerLite or other email marketing systems out there. Just put a tag based on where they come from, and that makes your life easy afterwards.
All right, so beyond pay-per-click or pay-per-thousand views ads that we have, is there anything else as far as marketing that you're seeing that's quite effective right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's not new, but videos are working really well, especially on Facebook and Instagram. They generally get lower cost per clicks and conversions. And what I love about videos is that they create custom audiences as well. So that's part, again, of the whole blue ocean marketing thing. You create your own audience. So not only are you getting cheaper clicks because of the video, but you can create a custom audience and a lookalike audience based on all the people who viewed your video. That's pretty powerful. And Facebook has so that's more for authors who've got a pretty big brand and they want to play the brand angle. You've got something Facebook calls instant experiences. It used to be called canvas or collection ads. And you can basically display a video or a static image and a little carousel of 4 items below on top of the headline and the text and all the usual things. And then when people click on it, instead of going to Amazon or going to BookFunnel or going anywhere, they're showed an instant experience that you design within Facebook. They've got a little tool to build it that's very easy to use. And I think that can be really cool for advertising a whole series or even a whole universe where you have a trailer to introduce the series and the first 4 books in a carousel below. People click on it and they get the video again, then they get a little blurb, then they get in the carousel with the different books, and they get a review, then they get maybe another video or a reader magnet thing, so that you can basically advertise a bunch of things in one. I did that for an author, for a cozy mystery author. We're advertising through that. We're advertising both her books and her prequel, her free prequel on BookFunnel, and she was making her money back just through direct sales, and on top of that, getting a solid trickle of BookFunnel subscribers thanks to that. So it's a nice way to advertise everything at once and let readers choose what they're interested in, whether the paid books directly or starting with a prequel.
Okay, so sorry, I stutter my way through it. My husband's putting the baby down for a nap and he's crying, so I'm like, okay, trying not to pay attention to that. So how important is steady drip marketing versus big promotional pushes, and how often do you recommend authors do big pushes?
That's another really good question. So David Govern came up with this theory that I think is pretty right. I think it was last year, a couple of years ago, that steady drip marketing works better if you're wide, and big promotional marketing works better if you're in Kindle Unlimited. So I'd second that. I've definitely had better experience with big promotions for my KU authors. And I mean, his whole reasoning makes sense. So yeah, I mean, most of my clients are KU, and we're definitely having better luck with promotions. That's where you can really ride the charts, and we definitely see this huge wave of page reads 4 days after the start of the promotion and the ads, and after that, steady drip marketing can work, but you need a long series because it's going to be hard to get those conversions on a full price book. So as an example, I've been working with a fancy author with very long series, very successful fancy New York Times bestselling fancy author, full price books in KU. The conversions to sales as tracked by Amazon affiliate, another thing that you shouldn't do and that I don't endorse, but that I did, showed that he was getting something like 1% or below 1% conversion on the Amazon book page. And I've had that experience with a lot of authors in KU. Obviously, we have no idea whether people are borrowing through KU because Amazon doesn't tell you that even with the affiliate or Amazon store attribution or any attribution that Amazon makes available to us. So there's that unknown, but I mean, lower than 1% conversion to sales is just impossible. It makes it impossible to get a positive ROI, even if it's a long series of like 17 books at $4.99. So that's my experience. What we're doing now is advertising first in series, but no, not first in series, advertising box sets of the first 3 books. Box sets draw at $0.99, and we're seeing a much stronger conversion of those. And those ads are really working because people are buying the box set. And then, I mean, we're just started, so hopefully they're going to make their way through the series, but that's what we expect, basically. So I'd say if you're going to run Facebook ads or even steady drip marketing, it's going to work a lot better if you have something cheap at the start of, at the beginning of the series. That's my experience with Facebook ads. Amazon ads are a lot better for steady drip, but I'm not a big fan of Amazon ads. And yeah, I have less experience with those. So yeah, I like Facebook and BookBub more, and those work obviously better for promotions or free books. So yeah, it's a bit ironic that the one advertising platform that works better for drip full price marketing is the one exclusive to Amazon, whereas steady drip marketing works better for wide than for KU. It's a bit of a shame, but yeah, that's how it is.
Now, just generally speaking of advertising, large-scale advertising can sometimes feel really self-defeating because even if you're like shoveling $10,000 in a month and you're getting 20,000 out, obviously it's a winning proposition. But by the time you reach that level, you're spending an enormous amount of time and energy on advertising, and that time must be coming away from something, and it's going to be writing. So, like, how does somebody assess the correct balance of advertising versus productivity?
Yeah, I think when you're doing those big advertising campaigns, so first you can hire someone to help you with that, and second, you can get really productive at it. I don't think the Facebook ads we run at Reedsy, we spend big amounts on them, and I don't watch those every week. Honestly, I watch them every 2 weeks. When you have a big audience, for example, on Facebook, when you have a big audience and you've got an ad that's working well or a dynamic mix of dynamic ads that's working well, you can not touch those for 2 weeks, and it's gonna keep a very consistent cost per click and cost per conversion. So you don't need to monitor those every day. Amazon ads, as I said, they're a little bit more complicated, but there's no point in watching them every day because you don't get enough data on them. BookBub ads are a lot more time intensive because you gotta run a lot of author tests and creative tests. So that's where a lot of time can be eaten away. But honestly, I think that if you're well organized and you know when to look at things and you're not micromanaging basically your advertising, whether you're spending 1K or 10K a month, you don't necessarily need to look at it that much more.
All right, just a couple of questions here and we'll let you go to bed since it's getting late over there in Spain. I am curious, you mentioned that you like BookBub ads. Could you talk a little bit about, how are they doing for you? Any tricks that you recommend for those of us who struggle to get a good click-through rate over there?
So yeah, I like BookBub ads because I like the logic behind them of testing the author targets and testing the images and all that. I'll say that I'm really bad at them so far. So I haven't cracked the code. I just find them logical, and it's true that the more you test, the more images you create, the more small things you test, the better the results become. So that's what I like. Whereas Amazon ads, the more time I spend with them, and sometimes the worse they get. So I don't find the logic in Amazon ads as much as I find the logic in BookBub ads. But yeah, tips for good click-through rates. the things that have worked for me is testing a lot of author targets. So again, going through the also boats on Amazon, taking all the names, putting them, testing them. Anything that has 10,000 readers or more that I can target, I put them alone. If they have something like 2, 3, or 5,000, I group them with others. In an ad, I spend around 10, $15 on each ad. And I think you got to be very methodical in your testing. And you shouldn't be testing creatives and targets at the same time, because you won't know what, if you get a good CTR on something, you won't know whether it's because of the creative or the target. So test one thing at a time. I usually start with creatives. I pick a mix of like obvious target authors and test 4 or 5 different creatives, and I take the winning one and test it across different author targets, etc. And I mean, I've heard of, I talked to an author at Ning who managed to get an 18% CTR on a BookBub ad, and that was just through hundreds of tests. So I don't think there's any real big secret on there, aside from being really good at creating images and testing a lot.
I think that's part of it there, and why so many authors are like, yes, Amazon ads, I don't have to like go to Canva and create anything. Well, the last thing we, oh, sorry, did you have something to add?
No, it's totally true. Yeah, they're easier, but I don't find them as logical, and that bugs me.
And it's probably more competitive now too, because everybody's doing Amazon ads. So the last thing we want to ask you is, you mentioned that Reedsy is opening up to literary translators. Can you talk about, for people that have the money to spend on this and are interested in trying to gain a foothold in the international market? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, definitely. I think people have been asking us about literary translation for a long time now, pretty much since we launched. And we were pretty reluctant of doing that because we didn't think it made sense for anyone really to get translated until pretty recently. The reason for that is that until 2 years ago, I hadn't met a single German author who was making a living self-publishing on the German store. I met one for the first time at Frankfurt Book Fair 2 years ago. So that's when I thought, okay, then the German market is probably ready. And this year I met several French authors who were making, I think, 6 figures on the French store by self-publishing on Amazon.fr. I know an Italian author who makes a living out of self-publishing, out of his probably one book only, thriller on Amazon.it. His wife is one of the marketers on Reedsy and helped him with the marketing, so that certainly helped. So I think now that on top of that, now that Amazon has launched ads, is allowing us to run ads on those different country stores, it's a really great time to move into those markets. Very, very low competition. People don't know how to do Amazon marketing on there. So even if you don't know the language, you have a huge advantage in that you know how Amazon works. And I'm being centered on Amazon here because, yeah, that's the number one store in those other countries as well. And yeah, you're going to come in with that marketing advantage. You're going to come in with that advantage of running Amazon ads in a place where no one is running ads. I think Mark Dawson right now can't stop talking about his ads in Germany. And we can all see how annoyingly well he's doing on there. And yeah, those are blue oceans. Those are basically blue oceans where you can go advertise right now. So I'd say if you're making probably 6 figures in the English speaking market, then it can make sense for you to start targeting the German market. That's the number one after English, and that's one where ebook consumption is the highest in Europe. So that's the number one I'd go after, and the way I'd go after it is probably get at least one book translated, ideally 2, 3 if you can afford it. Keep in mind that cost of translation is around 10 cents per word, so that can go up to 8K for an 80,000 word novel. That's the range of translators you're going to find on Reedsy. Again, upper end of the market, we only have professionals on there. So that's a pretty big investment, but I'm pretty sure that right now is the best time to recoup that investment if you're among the first movers to do that.
Do you have any thoughts on maybe which genres that maybe do well in the US might also do well in some of these other markets, and maybe which would not? Like I've heard like American Civil War, maybe not that big in Italy. I don't know.
Crazy. Yeah, I think we have a blog post on that, but since I didn't read it, I didn't do the research, I don't remember exactly. I think sci-fi and fantasy is pretty popular in Germany. So that's, I mean, Blaise Ward, another Nink author, translated, got one of his novellas translated into German and did really well with that. And I think he's moving on with more translations in there. So I think, yeah, sci-fi, fantasy, thriller in Germany, I've seen a lot of successes there. I think romance in Italy works okay. Thriller must work well as well. But yeah, romance, I think Bella Andre was among the first ones to, and Deborah Holland have gotten Italian translations. They did that several years ago. And I'm not sure if they broke even, but I'm thinking that if you were to do it now, if they were to do it now, they probably would break even. What else? The French market is a lot more literary. So if you've got books that are in a commercial genre, but with more of a literary feel, that will generally appeal to a French audience. No cliches whatsoever here. And yeah, those are main things I could think about. Yeah.
Awesome. And where is that on ReadZ? I think Andrea was saying, you said this is brand new, right? The translation stuff?
Yeah, it's brand new. We don't have a landing page for it yet. We've got a couple of blog posts on our blog. So if you go to our blog, you'll find a couple of blog posts about translation. And if you just log into Reedsy to access our marketplace, you're going to see editors, designers, marketers, and you're going to see translators as well in there. So you can obviously search by genre, search by keyword, and search by language pairs. So English to German, English to Italian, English to Spanish. We've got a lot of really big names, especially in sci-fi and science. Well, in science fiction and fantasy.
That's okay. It's getting late. We're gonna let you go. If there's any, give us anything we may have forgotten to ask you, and remind us, you know, the services that you haven't mentioned, or anything else you want to tell us about Reedsy before you go.
No, I think that must be one of the few times I've managed to cover everything. Yeah, we mentioned the free courses, Reedsy Discovery. Yeah, we've got this free formatting tool that a lot of people like as well. So I know most authors use Vellum nowadays and love it. If you don't want to invest into Vellum for any reason, then try the Reedsy book editor first. Because it's free, it works on any device, so you can access it from anywhere. You don't need to have a Mac. You can access it's browser-based, so you can access it for anywhere in the world. And there aren't as many customization possibilities as with Vellum. You're not going to be able to add like little flowers in the corners and stuff. But you're still going to have a pretty professional and good-looking ebook and print-ready book at the end of the day. So it's worth a try. And if you come up with a better name for the tool than Reedsy Book Editor, we're really interested because we're looking to change that name. So I'm more than happy to hear options.
It's for formatting?
It's for formatting, yeah.
Okay.
You can write in, you can, no, so the thing you can write in there as well. We get a lot of people writing in there. It's a very clean, nice and clean writing interface. We've added track changes and commenting. So
Joe says to call it ReadZ. So there you go. ReadZ on Reedsy.
I'll take that name. Not very SEO friendly, but definitely on brand.
Well, there you go. ReadZ, and then you do the subtitle, the editing / formatting / all you need for ebooks tool.
Exactly. But yeah, there's going to be some pretty exciting news on that end soon. We're going to basically have a multi-author and author editor and author beta reader collaboration in there with track changes and commenting in a much nicer interface than Word. So we're hoping to convince authors to move away from this horrible Word. So we'll see.
All right. So you're basically taking over the world. One
The-
author
the-
at a time.
exactly. We're starting with Microsoft, and then we'll do the rest.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ricardo. And thank you for listening, everyone. And thank you to Joshua Pearson for producing the show. You can leave a question or comment or find the show notes at sixfigureauthors.com with the number 6. And of course, we've got that Facebook group just for listeners. If you want to come on by, search for 6-Figure Authors, or the link will be in the show notes. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you so much.
See you later, everyone.
So long, everybody.